light the first candle to honor Buddhism. We need to see and agree that what we seek already lives within us and we within it. Now we know our one great task. Watch for whatever promises us freedom and then quietly, consciously refuse to see ourselves through the eyes of what we know is incomplete. Then we live wholeness itself instead of spending our lives looking for it. We light the second candle to honor Taoism. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. We light the third candle to honor Judaism. You may not make the image of God because you are the image of God. We light the fourth candle to honor Christianity. For those who love God, all things work together for good. We light the fifth candle to honor Hinduism. The one who sees me in everything and everything within me will not be lost to me, nor will I ever be lost to him. He who is rooted in oneness realizes that I am in every being. Wherever he goes, he remains in me. We light the sixth candle to honor Lakota spirituality. Peace comes within the souls of men when they realize their oneness with the universe, when they realize that it is really everywhere. It is within each one of us. We light the final candle to honor the science of mind and spirit. Our highest satisfaction comes from a sense of conscious union with the inevitable life. All human endeavor is an attempt to get back to first principles, to find such an inward wholeness that all sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty vanishes. This week's reading is from our founder, Ernest Holmes. It is in this moment of time that we are to make the great decision. It is in this day in which we now are living that we must choose what path we are to follow. Shall we live in fear or in faith? Shall we live in confusion or in the peace that comes from a deep and abiding conviction that there is a power greater than we are, ready, willing, and able to work for us? So let's turn within and reflect on these words for a few moments. And I know that we are one mind, and we are collectively creating this divine manifestation, this wonderful experience, which is our Sunday service, which is our Sunday collective divine beingness. And I know that this experience today is God in expression, and that every part of it is exactly as it needs to be, that each of us are community, and that we are giving and receiving, that we're giving our presence and we're giving our consciousness and we're giving our unique talents, and we are all receiving that which is needed for us, that which is our own perfect divine experience for this day. And we are thankful. We're thankful for this opportunity to be together as community, as one divine expression. It is so wonderful to do this. And we release this, knowing that it is the truth. So we let it be, and so it is.
And so it is.
So we get to start talking about another holy day today. One of the most ancient we know. It's been around since, I think, since human beings realized that they were conscious, that they weren't simply, that they realized what they were feeling and thinking. Around this time of year, well, it's a couple weeks down the road now, December 21st, 22nd, around in there, for those in the northern hemisphere, the sun stops moving southward in the sky and pauses and then begins to move northward again. And we call that the winter solstice. And the word comes from Latin sol for sun and sisto for stop. The sun stops. And that holiday, this holy day, has been celebrated around the world since before we started keeping notes about what human history was all about. And it's really quite easy to understand why if you think about it. The sun is vital to life. And without it, nothing grows, nothing lives, nothing survives. I think the first self-conscious human being saw the days getting shorter and shorter and shorter and thought, oh my God, is this ever going to stop? Or is it just going to keep going until the world becomes dark and freezing cold? And at some point realized that the light was increasing again. The sun was coming back. And so it's a day that marks the new solar year, and it's a day of celebration, a day of gladness at the return of the light, at the rebirth of the planet. And it's a crucial part of the natural cycle of the planet that we recognize. Because in a real sense, the sun again begins its journey toward longer days and new growth and renewal of the world in our hemisphere. In old Northern Europe, it was called Yule, which comes from the Norse Yule, Jul, meaning wheel. That's part of the wheel of the world. And in Iran, it was called Yalda night. And in India, Ayan Parivartan. And the ancient Romans celebrated it as the birthday of Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. And in a spiritual sense, this holy day is layered with meaning, like most of them are. There's a surface meaning, oh yeah, it's getting light again. But there's all these deeper meanings. It's a reminder of the rebirth, the death and rebirth that's going on all the time. Because as one life ends, another begins. And that is the great lesson of our planet, I think, for us, of nature, when we get to know it, that spring follows winter every single year. It never stays dark. The life of the soil returns, and that means that we as people will survive another year. And so it's a holiday about learning to trust, a holy day about learning to trust that rebirth. And to our ancestors, it was an enormous deal, and so it's given rise to some really amazing things around the planet, like Stonehenge, which started to be built 5,000 years before the Common Era. That's 7,000 years ago. It took them 1,500 years to finish it, but you have to remember that they were raising those giant stones just by people power, and they were dragging the blue stones in the center from quite some distance away. Sort of like the pyramids, you just sort of have to scratch your head and say, how did they move that 40 tons of stone that far? We're not really sure. But the same thing occurred at Newgrange in Ireland. These were built so that people could note the return of the sun, because it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. It was survival or not survival. And so the solstice can act for us as a beacon of hope that the light always returns. Light always vanquishes darkness, and despite the darkness, we can trust that the light is going to come back. And there are times in our lives, are there not? I think I'm not alone in this, that are very dark indeed. We all have them. None of us gets through life without paralyzing doubt and head-exploding anger, and the kind of fear that just makes you go, wow, I didn't know I could be this scared. A host of other emotions that come to us when we're in dark places. And you know, whenever I've been in one of those places, I always think it's never going to end. Has that ever happened to you? This is never going to change. That's how I feel when I'm at the very bottom. It's going to be this way forever. We know it. We know different. And that's one of the reasons this holiday exists, I think, is to remind us that the darkness is always temporary, because when we're in that spot, it sure doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's a spiritual truth that's hard to hold on to when we're down in the dark depths. The wisdom that lies in the whole tradition of solstice, I think, tells us that the darkness has a vital function. That in order to experience that rebirth, we have to go into the darkness first. We don't get it, otherwise. There's no way to return to the light unless you have gone into the darkness first, right? Mythologist Joseph Campbell talks about this in relation to the idea of a dark cave, and he says the motif of a cave is associated particularly with the winter solstice, when the sun has traveled to its farthest point from the tilted earth, and the light is in the nadir of the abyss. What a great phrase. That is at its very, very, very darkest point. The cave has always been the scene of the initiation, where the birth of the light takes place. There's, a manger, a dark shed in the Jesus story. Here as well is found the whole idea of the cave of the heart, the dark chamber of the heart, where the light of the divine first appears. This image is also associated with the emergence of light in the very beginning, out of the abyss of the early chaos, so that one senses the deep resonations of this theme. The sun returning is a symbol of cosmic rebirth, if you will. Rebirth to a more transcendent light than the common light we're used to. And that can only happen in this cave of the heart, where we are so close to utter darkness that we begin to see glimmers of a different kind of light there. Campbell goes on to write, when you realize that eternity is right here now, that it is within your possibility to experience the eternity of your own truth and being, then you grasp that which you are was never born and will never die. That is the insight rendered in terms of the solar mystery, the mystery of the solar light, the sun, reminding us of this all the time. And so I love the way this holiday and all the holidays are layered with the traditions of ages and ages and ages. And as we dig into them, we start to find the treasures that can help us here and now. As we walk through the dark places and the light places of our own lives. And in New Thought, one thing we pass over really quickly is the darkness. We try to ignore it. And it's not just us, it's a Western thing, but it's particularly dire here in the United States. We want to avoid the darkness as much as possible. But part of the myth is the darkness itself. And when I say myth, I don't mean something that isn't true. I mean something that is cosmically, deeply, hugely true, regardless of the story that there is around it. We shy away from that myth of darkness, that the truth of darkness. We want only the light. And, maybe it's a relic. Maybe it's a relic of coming from a people that when they saw the light disappearing thought, we're all going to die. Maybe it's a relic of that ancient part of us. I don't know, but instead of doing rituals and sacrifices to the gods to make sure that the light comes back, we just try to ignore it and flip on all the switches and make sure we always have light, right? The ancients built structures to measure so they could see that the light was going to come back. And, Stonehenge, on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, the sun lines up perfectly with a different part of that measurement device so they could say, oh, look, it's hit that spot again. It must be coming back again this year. And gave themselves hope again. And we just sort of, forget that. We forget that darkness is a necessary and transformational part of life, of spiritual growth. What is the earth doing in the natural darkness of winter? It's not lying idle, right? Roots are growing. Roots are gathering up nutrients. Seeds are absorbing water so that when the sun comes back and the temperature is right, they can crack open and send down roots and send up a shoot and turn into something brand new and vital and healthy. That's what happens, right? The potential of the seed turns into a plant, but only after it's been in the darkness for a while. Darkness is a fertile, fertile time for our planet and for its creatures, and for us too, if we'll let it be. If we'll let it be. I think we fight against it because we don't know what's happening. We can't see what's coming. And we don't trust the whole process of what happens in the dark. But in the darkness, as I say, those seeds crack open and things begin to grow into their full potential. Each one of us grew up in the darkness of our mother's womb, and each night we turn out the lights because in the darkness restoration happens to our bodies. We sleep and we are restored. And so when something in our lives needs to change or something in us needs to change, we kind of come to that understanding only after this seed has germinated in the dark parts of us, the darkness of our own hearts, and let us know that something needs to change. We may not even know what it is. Sometimes we don't know what it is for a long time, and we just have to hang out in the dark, right? We just have to hang out there until we find out what this thing is that's trying to happen. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Making the darkness conscious. And we're just not very good at that. We're not very good at waiting, right? Particularly not very good at waiting in the dark, where we can't see what's happening. We don't want to do that. We stamp our feet and we get mad. So we have to consciously enter the darkness to see what's there, and to look at what's there with open-heartedness and clarity, and learn to see with different eyes. This is part of the solstice mystery for us as well, simply being willing to look, to go into the darkness and to see what's there. So I want to do a little process for us today of just a little delve in, and then we're going to follow with a little call and response ritual thing. So I invite you to spend a few moments in the mystery, playing in the mystery with me, this mystery of death and rebirth and waiting in the dark and transcendence. And so if you wish, you can close your eyes and just let your body relax. And take a breath or two. Let your awareness follow your breath down into your heart. Down into that dark, precious, holy cave of your heart. And stop and consider your own life and the areas where you may be in the dark. And it's okay. It's okay that you're in the dark there. Stop and consider what is there that is like a seed waiting, swelling up and waiting to crack open at just the right time. Maybe you don't even know what it is. Maybe you just have that vague, anxious feeling that something is happening. Something is wanting to crack open. There is a change coming. but you don't know what the result will be. So just note how you feel about that, whether you know what's coming or not, whether you have any idea of what this change will be or no idea at all. How does it feel? If you're impatient, just note that you're impatient. If you're anxious or fearful, just note that. You don't have to put it on and wear it. Just note that it's there. If you're not happy about having to wait, just note that. Just let it be there. And now remember a time where you've been in this place before, where something was trying to happen, something was changing and becoming reborn in you. And you felt this impatience and this anxiety. And remember when that darkness came to an end and you saw the end result. And remember that all was well. You wouldn't be here if it hadn't been. All was well. And let yourself realize that right now, all is well too. All is well, even in the dark. And as you reflect upon this past experience, you can actually bring it forward into your now, along with that notion that all was well then. You came through it, you learned, you grew, you were changed. And see if you can bring a little bit of that into the now and let what's happening now be a situation where all is well. We are together going to bless this holy darkness. If you don't have any right now, bless it for those around you. When we bless something, we know it to be, we call it forth as a force for good in our lives and in our world. So I'm going to read a paragraph and then we are going to respond together. We bless you, holy darkness. We bless you, holy darkness. Dear fruitful ground of our being, you turn the sun's face away from us as you gather us into the darkness of winter. You call us inside to the great fires in our hearts. You ask us to warm the hands of hope in our secret soul places. You show us the heavenly seeds that have been planted in our souls and remind us that heaven's answers rest in the dark ground of our beings. We bless you, holy darkness. Dear fruitful ground of our being, when the loneliness comes, you cradle us in your dark, enriching arms. In the darkness, you teach us to trust what we cannot see, to hope for that which seems impossible, to have faith in the night of unknowing. You reveal to us the necessity of patience and the holiness of waiting in the dark. We bless you, holy darkness. Dear fruitful ground of our being, in the darkness you cover us with beauty. The poetry of the moon and stars, the loveliness of nocturnal creatures who make music in the forest's darkness. the mystery of the silvery shadows. You soften the day's light to show us the lights of nighttime. You give us the gifts of rest and sleep. You send to us your night angel to close our eyes and to breathe life into our dreams and visions. We bless you, holy darkness. Dear fruitful ground of our being, all of creation finds life in the watery womb of your darkness. Deep in the rich black soil of the earth, many seeds are cradled in your nurturing womb. Soon the shell of the seed will crack open, and blessings will rise up out of the darkness. We bless you, holy darkness. And we pray in the quiet darkness of this moment, as we search for the sacred light that shines on in our darkness. Just as we find light in the heavens, in spirit, let us understand that in the darkest recesses of our beings, light shines. To find that light, we must go into the dark. We know that Spirit goes with us, goes as us, into all the dark places where we must travel. So we step forward free of fear to be a lantern for ourselves and for one another. It is good. It is very good. All is well, and so it is.
And so it is.